Hello, hello, Jordan.
Hey, Kyle. How?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. I had a meeting up until just like 30 seconds ago, so I'm trying to get all set up here.
Well, I can vamp for you there. Well, so thank you for everyone who's joined so far. See lots of familiar names. As usual, we'll get started around 5 after. So grab some water, do what you need to do. While we're waiting here, if you want to let us know where you're joining from, it's always fun to see where we get representation. And yes, we will get started here shortly. Hey, Christian, you're back in Florida. I was going to ask if you were back home.
Yes, I am Florida now. Nice to see you.
You
Hey,
too.
Jordan. California. Nice. Dude.
So just another reminder for everyone, Jordan's getting set up, ready to go. Thank you so much for joining us on this lovely Friday afternoon. We'll get started with the content here at about 3:05, so in about 3 minutes. So last chance to refill a water bottle, do what you need to do, and we will dive right in. And thanks again for joining us. Let us know where you're joining from in the chat.
First time that I saw from Austria. Really nice. You're growing. I didn't know that you are in New York City, Liu. Liu. How is the weather in your side, Jordan?
Oh my God! It was we have this like false fall in Texas, and now we're back into second summer. So nice and melty out there.
We had the same. We had highs in the low 70s, high 60s for like 2 weeks. And it was just, there was no transition. It was like peak summer, then that, and now we're back to in the 90s. It's crazy.
And everybody's sick because they changed.
Exactly. And we went out during all this. We flew out to Vegas, got all that hot, dry air, and then came back to cold, wet air. Yeah, it was great. I had a cold last week.
Yeah.
Tarun, it's 12:30.
Oh my goodness, that's dedication. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming. We need to create a merit badge for that.
Get Brit on it, or get Pooja on it.
All right, I guess we can go ahead and get started. Let's share my screen. All right. Well, welcome everybody to our September edition of the DataDev Tableau User Group. So We have a few announcements. So, first, as always, this is the leadership of DataDevQuest. So we have Christian and Kyle and myself. All of us are on the call. Marcelo and Paula also amongst our leadership, but unfortunately they cannot be with us today. So first we have a few announcements. I forgot to update the title there. My apologies. I'll fix that before we send these slides out. But we'll go into the challenge for the metadata, then talk about our new challenge and how you can join the community. So for announcements, the 2025 Tableau Ambassadors have been published. So these 24 people on this screen are ambassadors for 2025. So let's see, we have Enruta, Brad, Chris, Christian, David, Eric, Jay, Jessica, Jordan, Joshua, Kyle, Lee, Marcelo, Mike, Mohammed, Nick, Paula, Roshni, Sebastian, Tarun, Timothy, Tristan, Vorpal, and Zach. Oh, that's a lot of people. A lot more than we had in prior years. So, what do we have this time for our DataDevQuest challenges? Well, we decided to go into something we hadn't explored yet, which is metadata API. The metadata API is a touch different than what we've been doing in the past, because rather than using the REST API or the JavaScript API that we've kind of been talking about, it uses a different language to communicate with the server. It uses something called GraphQL. Oh, I'm sorry, Britt. I didn't have your picture on the slide. um, so I guess I should detail how do you get to this interface. So if we're on, let me zoom in so everybody can see this. So if you're on your Tableau site, you can go to external assets and then query metadata. Or if you are very lazy, you can actually just bookmark this. You'll notice this URL up here. It does not have your site in the URL. So it only references whatever site you're currently authenticated to.
Can you give me a favor, Jordan? Can you zoom make a zoom for the
URL?
yes, or copy in the chat, because it's difficult to read. It's really small.
Sure. Yeah, I'm on a specific pod of Tableau Cloud. So you'd have to change that prefix, like the 10ax.online.tableau.com. You'd have to change that with your server address. But the important part is, after you sign into your server, it's this part right here, metadata/graphical. And it may also gets kind of confusing because this is graph IQL. Show it again. Absolutely. So if I go back to my home page, so on the left-hand side, there's external assets. And then in the top right, there's query metadata.
I love this tip, because I always go to the documentation, and from the documentation get the link. And Jordan told me this and say, "Oh, I learned something new here in DataDevQuest."
I also didn't know you could get there that way. That's really cool.
Yes. Got to show something to the visionaries. All right. So the reason I really like, even as I'm writing, so like I said, in the URL, it's graph IQL, right? Graphical. which might be somewhat confusing because the language that you use to write these queries is called GraphQL. So the URL has the I, but the language does not. But the reason I personally like coming here to this graphical interface as I'm trying to write the queries is it right there in front of you, you get this documentation explorer. You have something that you can dig into what is available inside the metadata layer. So whenever you're writing something with GraphQL, you first have to declare, like, what am I trying to do, right? So query, you always have to write query to say, I'm trying to get information from the server. And then you have to name your query something, right? So we'll do DataDevQuest _ TUG, and we'll call this workbooks just for now. And I'm being lazy and using initialism there to just save space. And so you may say, well, okay, now I have the structure of the query. I don't know what I can query. Well, conveniently, if here you just click on query under root types, it'll tell you, here's everything that you can query in metadata to get information out. So for me, the primary piece of media that Tableau offers is the workbook, right? So we're going to start there. We're going to start with workbooks. So I can say workbooks, and it gives you that nice tab completion. I just have to start typing workbooks, and I can, use my arrow keys. Oh, zoom to 150. Is that better?
Yes, thank you, Jordan.
Okay.
If you can put it a little more, will be. It's because the font is not clear. I don't know why. Maybe because the streaming or something.
Okay.
But if you can put it maybe 200 or something like that, will be nice.
Okay. If I go up to
better, a lot better.
Okay.
Now it's clear. Thank
Great.
you.
So now, like I said, I just go to the query, what's available, I see workbooks here. If I just start typing workbooks, it gives me this little pop-up completion menu. I can tab complete it and give it the curly braces to now say, what do I want out from the workbook? Oh, the light gray is not enough contrast. That's because that's comments. We can ignore that for now. If I just delete that, if it's up or more towards the top, is that better for people to read?
But it's a good comment, Jordan, only to get something from the question. When you are working with metadata API, you try to many things like a try and error, right? Then you can copy and paste the query and duplicate it. And if you try to run it, in some cases fail because it's trying to run the previous one. Then an easy way to handle this is basically that you select everything. And if I remember well, you can create with a shortcut Control/, you can comment it all the lines in one shot.
Yeah, Control/ will toggle it as commented or uncommented.
Thank you.
So now we can select, and as opposed to what you get with the REST API, where for the most part, Tableau server or cloud says you're querying this endpoint, here's what you're getting. You can ask the API for different things. I may only need the workbook name and the LUID. And here's a fun little tip. This LUID is the same identifier that shows up in the REST API. So if you're doing some things with the REST API, some with the metadata API, I recommend that you always grab the LUID, because then it's a little bit easier if you need to jump into the REST API to do something. You have that data right there available to you. And as we all know, a workbook, if I search for this, I might see, oh, look at that. I have a Superstore workbook. I have a Superstore workbook, 2 different IDs, because a workbook name is unique within a project, but a workbook name is not unique globally across your site. So you might want to include what's my project LUID and what's my project name. That way I can see, okay, I have a superstore in the default project and I have a superstore in the samples project. So I have two different superstores, and that's how I differentiate them. What makes the metadata API really interesting, beyond just I can ask it for different things, is, oh, I can see details about the owner. So I can put in an owner block and I can ask for specific details about the owner. I can ask for their LUID. I can ask for their name. So I can see who actually owns this and then get out some details about the owner of that workbook. Or taking it a step further, like Christian, Christian helped add something great to the challenge where we can say, what are some upstream data sources? And we can ask for their LUID. What's their project name? So if your workbook connects to something else, right there, we can ask the metadata API to provide that information. So this GPU workbook that I created, and yes, I did use a Tableau workbook to help me identify a price to performance ratio on GPUs. That way I was buying the good value, right? Or down here, we have admin insights, which actually does connect to other published data sources. And we can see that connection here. We can see what it's drawing from. And the nice thing about this as well, so if we go back to our top level query, if we look at workbooks, you see, oh, it says filter. It accepts a filter. Well, what can I pass with workbook filter? Oh, I can filter it by name. I can filter by what project it's in. So we can pass in, we can say filter this where the name is, say, Superstore. So you can get really fine-grained with passing this in. Well, this is all well and good. Writing a filter here, but it's not reusable, right? You want this to be reusable. You want to make this so that you could maybe put this into code and extend it. So you need to make this a variable, right? So we'll come down here. We'll make in variables. We'll say workbook name, and we want this to be Superstore. And it gives you this handy little warning saying, hey, you have this variable, but it doesn't appear in your query. So you have to tell your query, I want to use a variable, workbook name, and it's string. And now I can say workbook name. And now I have this parameterized so that I can pass in a variable of Superstore without having to do kind of GraphQL injection. So if I were to jump over into, say, something with Tableau Server Client, and I've got my, I walk through the basic, and then variables, right? So this is kind of the same thing that I was showing up there, right? We have workbook name, it's a string. And how do we pass this in? Well, when I'm in my Python code, server metadata query, I'm reading that GraphQL file. So that's, variables.graphql. And here I should be able to say just variables equals workbook name Superstore. So now, the same GraphQL that I can write in the browser, I can use through Tableau Server Client and have it variabilized and pass that along. Well, one of the things is
Can you
Yes.
do the same, Jordan? Like a Summit, the Visual Studio, the letters is also
Oh, let me
clear.
zoom in again.
Yes, perfect. And if you can, thank you for that.
So similarly, or as you kind of progress in this, you might say, well, I want to make sure as I query this, let's change this back to owner just so I have something that's giving me a result. So I have the locally unique ID for that user. I have the user name. Well, as I start pulling data out, especially if you're using TSC, TSC has this function extract values. And so if I were to run this and I pass it extract values, oh, I gave away the secrets over there. But if I pass in extract values and I say LUID, well, the problem is that at the workbook level, I have a LUID, and at the owner level, I have a LUID. And so if I use something like extract values or something else that does goes into each item level and hey, does this key exist? Give me this key out, which that's exactly what extract values does. Well, it's going to intermix my owner ID and my workbook ID, and it's not going to be very clear which is which. So that's the other fun thing about the metadata API is I can very easily just say owner ID with a colon, and now owner ID is the alias that you see in the results. So if you're used to SQL, it's kind of the opposite of SQL, right? Where in SQL you'd put the field name that's in the table and then your alias after. GraphQL is the opposite. You say, oh, here's what I want it to be named, colon, here's what it is actually in that object.
Wow, Jordan, how many tips are you giving? I didn't know this one either.
So GraphQL is pretty flexible in what you can do. And to Christian's point, right? So here we did this whole thing with working with workbooks, but maybe you have it the other way around. You say, well, I have some query, DDQ TUG data sources, and then I want to get my published data sources. I want to get their name, their LUID, and then a real thing that's happened to me many times, like when I was a server admin, is I'd get a question saying, I need to know everything that connects to any of these workbooks that comes from this data source. So you can do downstream flows. What flows are connected? Downstream workbooks. What workbooks are connected to this? Name, LUID. So you can very quickly, I'm starting with an object. How do I drill in, drill in, drill in? Both, either from the top level, the database or the data source going down, or from the workbook going up. And I guess since I am the kind of self-appointed Tableau Server client guy, hey, I have a workbook. The workbook is out of date. I'm trying to refresh it. I'm having trouble because, it's a workbook that depends on other flows, and these flows depend on other data sources. And, if you use this, what's my workbook? What are my upstream flows? what are my upstream data sources? Oh, it's not happy because I didn't put any fields in there. But you can very quickly get to that full chain. And then, with your Tableau server client, now that I've got my workbook IDs out, server dot data sources dot refresh. Oh, see here, it requires a data source item. So for ID and IDs, I can make it myself, tsc.data source item. What does it require? We'll, data source was that data source dot. Oh, I'm going to modify the private variable. So, and pass in the data source. I get out a job. And jobs.append job. So now I've created a whole stack of jobs. Oh, and then after that, look at that. Copilot actually, well, that's actually the wrong, it would be for job and jobs, server.jobs.wait for job. So Copilot was almost helpful there. But so that metadata API, like I said, it gives you a little bit more flexibility in what you ask for, how you get to those fields, what fields you get back, and building that hierarchy so you can create everything up and downstream all in one go.
Another tip, Jordan, for using the scenario you just described is like the number one reason why folks get into the metadata API, like what's connected to what in both directions. It's a great way to find that. Also, for folks who maybe haven't used it, the metadata API in general, how do I say this? It's a lot faster when you don't know what you're trying to find, if that makes sense. Like if you have like a general query of I need to find things that meet maybe a very general criteria, instead of doing like workbooks.filter, workbook with request options, views, whatever, if your requirements are kind of vague, the GraphQL querying is faster. It's meant to be. So if you know you have like a ton of results or vague, more vague than something with TSC where you might be like, I want the workbooks in this project by their IDs versus I need everything on my server that matches a specific criteria, even across sites. You'll have a much better time performance-wise with the metadata API.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's even things that the metadata API can do that TSC just can't, right? I kind of showed you, here's how I maybe operate with workbooks or data sources, but it even has databases. So I can say databases like this. I want the name. I want this. Oh, see here, I even forgot what attributes it has because I'm looking for the description. Oh, it's server, right? Database server. Database servers, that's what I was after. So I can do what's the name? I can look at what's the host name? What's the port? Right? So if you came to my talk at Tableau conference, I used a Supabase connection. So now look at this. I can say here, give me everything that connects to filter where I thought Did I do this manually? I might have done this manually before. Database server field, host name, right? Host name. Oh, it would help if I did that correctly. Host name, right? Because if you guys do any sort of admin work, if you've ever gotten a question from data governance or InfoSec, like who's connecting to this database? Well, you could use TSC, enumerate every object on your server, enumerate every connection, and try to then filter. Or you can say, hey, I have the server, here's its host name. Now show me downstream workbooks. Name, fluid. Right? You can't do this with the REST API. So Joshua and Lee also sent in submissions. I don't have them queued up, so my apologies. But they did great. Their solutions are that Supabase has been shut down. So I've also hope I haven't shown my API keys here, but I better go delete them afterwards just in case. But Joshua and Lee published great solutions in their GitHub. They've published them on LinkedIn. Go check those out as well. Just because I do it a certain way, I have a certain pattern, especially when it comes to TSC, right? I do things a very structured way with TSC, and not everybody does it this way. So you can go see some other ways that people are utilizing these objects. And again, just to kind of showcase what I'm doing here, share the links. Yeah, Josh and Lee, if you guys can put your links in the chat so other people can help find them. That's all I have today for you on the metadata API.
I have another tip for Jordan that you didn't mention. It's a small one, but it's really useful when you are running these queries. One of the things is why we put a name after the word query. And then if you click, can you uncomment the first one or the first two?
Yeah.
And also the second one. And look that if not press the triangle of the bottom, only go to the bottom and without press the one that is in the top with the circle, like at the play.
Oh, here?
More up after the word, this one, correct?
Oh, you execute?
Yes, in this one, then that is an easy way to run a specific query that you have when you have too many. In some cases, you can easily have 100 lines when you are building something complicated. Then to remember what is the previous one that you want to run for some testing, then an easy way is giving these names and use it the run a specific query. I didn't know if you know this.
I did not know that because I've always just commented them out.
Everyone is learning here. Another thing that is there inside is how many. It's a common question that I get is how many rows is going to return when you have something that is iterative. Then the answer is 1,000. But you can get it by paginations. I can give you the link of the documentation that say how.
Yeah.
It's a more in advanced place. At the end, normally it's not needed, but in case that you have more than 1,000 workbooks, for example, and you need to have that, then there is a way to handle that using pagination.
Yeah, exactly. So as Christian mentioned, here you can say I want the oh, right, because pagination actually requires a different if I do, paged, so it would be like workbook connection, because then I can say nodes, I want the total count, and I want page info. And under nodes, that's where you actually select, here's what I want out from the object. Maybe I want the LUID, I want the Viz portal URL ID. One more tip for you guys on the, I forgot to actually put anything here for page info. I want end cursor has next page. There we go. So I'll do the same kind of thing here that I did before. I'll filter. This takes workbook name, which is a string. Filter. We'll do name, WB name. So here we're getting out our 2 Superstore workbooks. So something that I've gotten questions on in the past is like, how do I find? Do I have? Oops. Sorry, give me 1 second to launch a different application so I can get this.
Hey, Jordan, vamping for you while you do that. Josh asked a question in the Q&A about the metadata API and the data management tool. Or the data management add-on. I don't want to say anything wrong because we do have Britt here on the phone. But essentially, if you Google it, I'm reading from the AI overview, so make sure and check with someone before purchasing anything. What you don't get if you don't have data management is the cataloging, like the more intense cataloging, which is where a lot of that metadata comes from. And you don't get the data quality features like updating and adding and things like that. So you can still query basic metadata with this API, whether or not you have the add-on, but the functionality is limited. I don't know that anything Jordan or Christiana showed us so far would be limited there, but for everyone on the call, talk to whoever you make purchasing decisions with. Don't take it from me.
Yeah, I think that the part that is limited there in the query that the Jordan show is the database. In some of the lines he put the database, and it's not going to return anything. I don't know if it's going to fail, but at least it's not going to return.
So one last metadata API tip for you all. So if I search for, I should include project name here. So if I'm looking for, like we were doing before, where I'm looking for the Superstore workbook, I'm looking for, okay, here's one that's in the samples project. This is the LUID as it exists with the REST API. And then there's the Viz portal URL ID. This Viz portal URL ID is the same ID that you would see up here, right there in the URL. So if you need that conversion between like REST API and what can a user click on, the metadata API is the way to get that.
Wow, I was looking for that a long time ago. Thank you for that. I didn't know that it exists there.
I guess I was talking about the workbooks connection. The reason why this differs and why you would want to go through that extra step of it having nodes in this page info is, to Christian's point, that way you can paginate if you're getting too many results back. So you can pass it first. I want the first 10 objects after, we'll say none here. And you can, same kind of thing, you can parameterize this. This is more detailed in the metadata API documentation. I was going to show an example of how to do it with Tableau Server Client, but the TSC docs are not updated to reference how to pass in the page info. So that is something that I will work on including into the TSC docs. So you guys have that soon, but it's not available right now. And I think I'm all out of tips for metadata API at the moment.
I'm pretty sure every person watching, including us who've used this many times, learned at least one new thing. Jordan, that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize you could, when you hit the execute button up here, that would show you the names there, so you could select which one to execute. That's you mean I don't have to go and comment them out? That's
Yes. And also, I didn't know that comes in the history, this name. So
Yeah.
the chat mentioned.
They'll show up there in the history.
I didn't notice that neither. We learn a lot of tips.
And don't forget to hit printify. You know, make your oh, it doesn't like the after is none. But yeah, don't forget to make your code pretty, because after all, code principally exists to be read. So
Cool. Thank you, Jordan.
yeah,
That was awesome.
so now we will. I'll pass over to Kyle to talk about what are our next challenges.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Oh, I think you have to stop sharing for me to
Oh, I
share.
have to stop sharing.
Hang
Okay,
on,
there you
hang
go.
on. Yes, now I have the option. All right. So I'm going to share this screen, and I'm going to probably going to have the infinity mirror for a second. Yep. So, alrighty. So it's time for new challenges, right? New months, new challenges. And like Jordan said, this our foray into the metadata API the last time around was kind of the first time we had really focused on this. And this time we're going to focus on something that maybe couldn't be any different, but is new for us. I primarily consider myself a front end, a back end developer. I'm going to switch what screen this is on because I can't see the meeting and that's confusing me. Give me just a second here. I consider myself primarily a back end developer, and I work with some really super talented front-end developers, including like Marcelo, who's on the DataDevQuest team, and folks like that. So I really wanted to challenge myself a little bit, and all of you, into a more front-end focused challenge. So this is kind of the first one we've done, and so it's a perfect opportunity for us to jump into the embedding API. So I'm going to jump in. The challenges are live now if you want to follow along, but I'm also sharing them here. So I'm going to jump into the beginner, and we're going to embed content with the embedding API. So a lot of people probably know, let me log into my site really quick. A lot of people probably know that I can go in here to, let me find something. Go into here and click on my share link and get some very basic embed code here, right? This code, if I just paste it into, it's in the way of my doc. Let's do it this way. Paste it into a VS Code here just to see what we got, right? So we get something very, very basic. That's going to be really small, I'm sure. Let me zoom in, and we'll turn on word wrap for you guys. So we get just a very basic script tag that imports the embedding JS file, and then all that script really does is lets our page, whatever it is, know what a Tableau viz element means, right? If you're embedding this on like, Confluence or SharePoint, something simple like that, no problem just embedding it that way. You won't really have any interactivity, right? The thing will just load up. People can see it. They can interact with it as a Tableau viz. But for all intents and purposes, you've just cut out a hole in your page or application that contains some Tableau content. There's not really any communication back and forth. And also, there's some veterans on here, you might remember back in the day when we would embed things just using the share link and iframes, which still perfectly fine for that sort of limited use case, but we're data devs, right? We want to go a little bit further than that. So for the beginner challenge, what I would like what the challenge is, right? What we'd like to have people do is set up that initial interactivity with a Tableau Viz that's embedded inside of a web page or an application. So if you see this video real quick that's looping, what I'm showing here is that while the Tableau Viz is loading, my web page is also giving an indication that like, hey, it's not ready yet. Don't click on it. I can imagine we have some embedding internally at work where the dashboard takes, 15 or so seconds to load. And so they've got like a nice little, overlay with a little graphic, cute little ball bouncing around, like just something to tell your users like, hold up, something's still happening. Before you dive in, I want to give everyone on the call a nice tool that they can use here that I'm not sure how well publicized this still is, but I've found it extremely helpful over the years. It's called the Embedding Playground. Yes, I'll zoom in when I go back to the other page, Christian, but I'll zoom in here as well. So I put the link in the chat as well. So the Embedding Playground, which is still around, I see people saying that. I see you, Roshni, and I see Christian saying that you remember it. So this is a great tool for folks that I still use it every once in a while just to get like the initial event listeners and things like that I want when you're talking about embedding. I'll talk about more about those in a second. But it's also a great way to just jump in and grab something and go with it if you just need something quick and maybe you don't have a ton of time to spend on learning the API. But I encourage everyone here, especially if you're new, to start here. You can put in a URL to a view on your own server, or you can just start with the sample. I'm just going to start with the sample because I'm not really that concerned with much else. Read through a little bit what it does. But as soon as I do that, right, you can see it loads up the Tableau Viz, and I can interact with it in this page just like I would anywhere else, right? It's all Tableau. But then I can go over here and I can start exploring some of the things that I can do with the embedding API and things. So I can toggle off the show or hide navigation. So when I do that, it's over here, the tab navigation. This isn't a tabbed one. If this were a workbook that had tabs, it would turn that on or off. I can do the toolbar location. So I can change the Tableau public toolbar to the top versus the bottom, all those sorts of things. But one of the more exciting things that I can do, and it makes it easier to explore here, is work with interactions, right? So in the embedding API, the point is to have your Tableau content, your content from Tableau, embedded in another application, and for your application to be able to read your interactions there, and vice versa. And that's where the interactions in the API come from, and where this makes it a lot easier to sort of understand what they're doing and how to invoke them, right? So let's say that let's first look at what this is providing for me before I change anything, right? So in the center, and I'll zoom in a little bit more. I can't make that font independently any bigger, but in the center of the screen here, I have a code window, an embedded code window divided in two sections, right? JavaScript and HTML. The HTML is basically what makes the page, the structure of the page. The JavaScript is like the electricity that makes the lights go on and off, make things happen. That's sort of the way to think about these. But these work in tandem. And you can see what it's setting up for me in the JavaScript is the very first thing I'm going to want to know in almost every case is when the Viz is interactive. So hint, the answer to the first challenge is kind of in here, but I want you guys to play around with it. But what you can see on the left is I'm still importing that JS file that tells my browser session this is how to deal with the things you're going to see here, because they are specific to Tableau. I am then saying my Viz lives in in this case, in an element with the tag called Tableau Viz. I'm setting that as a constant. And then I'm doing a JavaScript promise here, which if you're new to JavaScript, just basically it's an asynchronous event. Do something, then do something else based on what happens. If you want to know more about that that's a much longer discussion. But there's a very basic JavaScript thing that just says basically set something up to be interactive asynchronously. And what do I see here? I see the Tableau event first interactive. What I'm which I'm adding what's called an event listener to. Again, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of JavaScript for folks who are brand new, but an event listener basically, when you're in JavaScript, tells you, I want you, JavaScript, to basically listen for certain things, monitor for certain things to happen within the context of my application here. And when they happen, do something. So that's it. That's really, that's all they're doing is listening for an event and responding. And the syntax that's in here is very consistent. So you can copy, paste, and change out your events if that's what you need to do as well. But if we just kind of read this, right, I'm saying I want to add an event listener call to the event called Tableau event type first interactive, which I'm importing at the top there. That's the instruction so that my application knows what this means. We've got some JavaScript syntax there, which basically just means on this event, I'm giving you a nameless function that does the following. And the following being console.log viz is interactive. And so if I come over here to the browser console, I can see, it's very small, but I can't make this bigger. But right here, this is where it logged out the message, viz is interactive. So at this point, once that event has happened, that means I know that my viz is ready to go. I can start listening for its events. I can start doing things to it. That two-way interaction is established, right? So like I said, highly encourage folks to come in here, play around, look at the different interactions. But to go back to the specifics of the challenge, and I will zoom in here. So why this challenge, right? I kind of already talked about it, but it's a great way to make an experience that, you could just never get out of the box with Tableau. Oftentimes it might be really helpful to have Tableau content in sort of an inventory management system, an ordering system, anything where it could be useful for folks to have visualizations that are powered by Tableau and also be able to do something at the same time in the context of a larger application. It's a great reason, a great opportunity to harness the power of embedding here. So the objective here, like I said before, is just to load in a visualization into your page and have something happen. While it's not interactive, when it becomes interactive, whichever. The video example here is just how I chose to do it. And I'm also going to provide, I'll keep going down. I provided a kind of a jump start for you too. So the learning goals for the beginner challenge, again, kind of familiarize yourself with the capabilities of the API. Using the playground is a great resource. There's also links in here to the full documentation. I'll bring it up in a bit. It can be a little dense to read through, but a great way to get started with the playground and then supplement that with the full docs for what you're interested in. So then we're going to embed a view or a dashboard, and then we'll use an event listener to do something once the viz that you've embedded is fully interactive, which is what I showed you in the playground. But we'll take that and build on it. Submission guidelines are the same as before. I won't read through it all, but we want your source code. Add a README if you can. A video of the solution is best. We love to feature those if we can. Any comments that are necessary, and then there's a link to the form to submit here in the challenge as well. That'll be true for the intermediate. The resources, this is the official documentation. I'll have that open for a minute. And then this is the reference, which I'll also, that's not the right link. I'll update that. And then the embedding playground link is also in here as well. So if you want to get there from the challenge, you can do that. So getting started, this is where I'm going to give you, I said, a little bit of a jump start. So if you want to just steal the bones of the example that you see in the video posted above, this is it with all of the embedding specific stuff taken out. So use the playground or the documentation to kind of fill it back in. That's fine. But if you're feeling adventurous, try to do your own thing, right? In the example, just a couple call outs for folks who may be familiar with some front-end development concepts. I'm just using Bootstrap.js, which is a free, it's not even really a framework. It's more of a component library because it's very unopinionated. It's very lightweight. It doesn't change syntax of anything. So you can do it with your own built-in tools with plain CSS if you want. I just did it to make things easy. Just know that it's there. You can absolutely use the embedding API with JavaScript frameworks like React or Vue.js, Svelte. There's a ton of them these days. I use Vue a lot for personal projects. It changes things a little bit because they have their own life cycles and things like that. So just know that if you are trying to do the challenges using a framework, things might be a little bit different. But if you do that a lot for work, it's definitely worth learning. If you have like questions specifically about those, we'd love to hear it as well. So let us know so we can add those as like tips and tricks in the future, maybe. But just an important call out that sometimes those frameworks change the order of events. So you have to compensate for that. Then under that, we've just got the basic CSS styles. Again, if you want to match how just the example you see, then feel free to grab all that, save those out. And one thing that I want to call out, sometimes when you're developing a web page or an application locally, it needs to be served up as a web page and not just a file, right? Like double clicking it, opening it in Chrome. Some things aren't going to work. So you'll need, for these examples, you'll need these pages, your index.html or whatever you call it, to be served via a web server. If you're using VS Code, that could not be easier, right? So just to show you the example here, let me pull this over to this screen. This is the beginner example on my local machine. And I can actually go to index.html and just click on open with live server. And now that I do this, it will open and see, this is the example that we saw in the video that goes away once the viz is interactive. Once I do that, now it's serving it to me on basically on a local host port, et cetera, et cetera. Just an important call out, like if you try to do this and save index.html and then just open it, but double click on it, let Chrome open it up, you are going to run into errors because of just the way stuff works over the internet with asynchronous and security. So just another call out as you are progressing through the challenge. Again, once you serve, I strongly recommend the embedding playground, and that'll show you a lot about importing things, et cetera, et cetera. So that wraps up the beginner challenge. Don't see any questions or anything. So I will just go right into the intermediate. The intermediate challenge, like we usually do, is going to build on the beginner. So if you're brand new to embedding, probably should start with beginner and then move into intermediate, and they'll definitely help you have more of the building blocks as you go along. Right, so last time in the beginner challenge, we just talked about getting it in, get something embedded, and then let your application be aware, basically, that it's become interactive. Well, now let's take that a little bit further and have our have the things that we do on our web page influence the viz, and things we do in the viz influence the web page or the application, and vice versa. So rather than the example video would show you exactly the same thing I'm going to show you, so I'll give you a live demo here. So I have, this is the code base for intermediate. I don't want to spoil anything, but let me go live with this page, right? So I've got that same thing that showed up that showed me that, hey, you're, actually, let me zoom in and refresh. So you can see the loading is still happening, but now watch what happens when I start selecting some things on the map. So let's just select the West Coast. So once I do that, oh, now my web page reacts and said, hey, you selected some stuff in Tableau, and now I am going to present you with a web native interpretation, or I'm going to make something happen based on what you selected. So I can see here, hey, you selected some stuff. Here's the states and the profit ratios, which are, super professional wording and stuff here. But okay, so now I can see, all right, well, I've got Washington, Oregon, and California. Let me just focus on the states that are, doing well right now. Let's remove Oregon from this analysis. Well, you can see it removed it not only from the map, it was a little hard to see, but the vises down here also updated because these are all connected, right? So if I also then say, okay, let me start over. Let's look at like New England, right? Let's see what's going on up here. Hey, they're all green, but let's see who's are like, let's get our 30s out here. I can interact with the page like this and have an experience. Like, you couldn't really build something that feels like this in Tableau, right? You can do dynamic zone availability, you can have parameter, all of that. It's not going to slide in like a web page. It's not going to be able to take advantage of, just the smoothness that you get from some of these newer, cooler JavaScript frameworks and things like that. And on top of that, this allows you, I could take this, imagine we had this set on like an inventory of items. I could, have a table, a nice table of items, start making selections and build a shopping cart, hit submit, and send that data to, a totally unrelated system that would submit that order, charge a credit card. You can start to think about, this is just making Tableau a functional part of any web page or application, and having them be able to interact with each other in both directions. So that's the challenge here for intermediate, is let's start making what you do in Tableau do some stuff on your web page, or vice versa, right? So again, same, I kind of already told you the why. The learning goals for this one is, let's basically take what we did in beginner and kick it up a notch, right? Same submission guidelines, same resources. I did once again give you the bones of everything that you saw, with the Tableau specific stuff taken out. So if you want just that, like the front outline of just a very generic application with a nav bar and a content and a slide out, you can grab the HTML, the CSS. And I did give you, because I realized I did some things in JavaScript just to make my life easier that are not Tableau specific. So I took the Tableau specific or the embedding API stuff out. But this is the stuff that I did to like update the DOM, which if you're a front-end developer or the front-end developer, that's the structure of the page itself. Do some data cleansing, because when you get data back from the embedding API, it's a very reliable but sort of a strange structure. So as a gift, I also gave you some of this JavaScript if it's not something you're used to dealing with all that much. I know Jordan was very, very gracious and helped me review the challenge, but said JavaScript is not necessarily his forte. So use any of this you want, steal it, change it, modify it. I don't care. If it helps you, that's why it's included, right? So same notes. Again, a note about frameworks, right? I wrote this in very like the JavaScript you would learn in a beginner-ish class, to keep it very non-platform or framework specific, and not be too, I sacrifice efficiency in some cases for readability. So for folks that are beginners, it just makes it easier to adapt. So just know that I'm not going for production quality necessarily. If this looks like crap to you, you're probably better at JavaScript than I am. Kidding. Anyway, like I said, build on what you learned in the beginner, and then the things that I would recommend you start with in terms of getting the two-way interactivity going from this reference guide are you need to activate a sheet when you want to interact with it. You need to, if you want to get the marks that are selected, you can do that. You can also clear marks that are selected, and then you can select marks by value. So those are where I would focus on if you're trying to get close to what you saw in the example. But there are many, many, many other things you can do as well. So if you feel like exploring something else, the reference here, which this time it is the right link, will show you, all the things you can dig into with an embedded viz. So you can see there is a lot in here. So if you're feeling adventurous, dive in to whichever, but those would just be my recommendations on where to start. I think that pretty much covers the new challenges. I will stop sharing here. And let's see.
Kyle, you made a comment about my reaction to JavaScript. And I won't say too much, except that after 20 years, I'm amazed that it's the only option in the front end, and that how it's considered a language is beyond me. Anyway, so that about wraps us up for the Tableau User Group for September. There's a QR code on the screen for if you want to come join us on the DataDev Slack. All of us are fairly active over there, answer questions. Next time, there will also be a QR code for the broader Tableau community Slack. Don't have that up right now. But if you want to come join us on DataDev, happy to have you.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining. We always love seeing everybody who turns out, and we can't wait to see what you come up with. Have a great weekend. And did we lose Christian? Oh, did he say yes?
Christian had to leave. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jordan, for leading us today, and thank you, Christian, for all the tips and tricks as well. And everybody, have a great weekend.